Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
What up, y'all? This is Airey Bros Radio, and this is episode 14 with legendary Monmouth University cross-country and track and field coach Joe Compagni. In the last 24 years, Joe and his teams have amassed 58 conference titles in the NEC and MAAC conference, and in the process, Joe has been named Coach of the Year 58 times. In addition to his accolades, Joe has coached 25 NCAA All-Americans, and in 2015, he was voted one of the 25 most influential people in New Jersey running. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of Airey Bros Radio. Much love, namaste, from the boys of 1512. Yeah, we're good to go, and we're putting all these things together for the guests. I had a very different outline and plan for our a conversation, and now it seems like you've got a we're putting a close on this chapter of Joe Compagni at Monmouth University and the storied career that you've had. So we just wanted to take an opportunity to honor you and maybe tap into some funny stories and maybe some not so funny stories and just kind of celebrate the last. It blows my mind to say the last 24 years, because although 24 years is a very long time, there are definitely some moments and some memories that seem very, very fresh and very new in my brain about our time together, and then all the time that has passed by since then, and the unbelievable program that you've been able to build, but also some of the amazing athletes that you've had the opportunity to foster, kind of give them a jump start to either their careers or even some more recently that have now kind of stepped into the professional ranks, and we've got a couple kids that are out there and doing it professionally. Yeah, we're just stoked to have you on and celebrate you and all you've done, and the tough, big shoes that the person coming has to fill. So thanks for coming on, and I think Jimmy's been working hard on some questions, so he's got some good questions I think he wants to get the answers to. So have at it, Prince.
Yeah, I tried my best. I know you've been appreciating my questions, so I tried my best to do some research and impress you a little bit.
Well, you're doing a great job. I enjoy listening for sure. So
thank you. That means a lot coming from you, Coach. You were always the level head in my running. My running was coming from a different place with Richie and my dad, and then going to MU camp with Coach Joe, super mellow, a whole different perspective. So I've always appreciated you. You started coaching at University of California in Pittsburgh, correct?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, California University of Pennsylvania, which is about an hour outside of Pittsburgh.
So you went from there. You were working in the 9-to-5 world, and then you kind of went to chase your dream as a coach, and then you were the first paid full-time coach at Monmouth. Was there any time when you were coming up as a coach where the money wasn't right, or you weren't making things happen on the coaching end, where you were looking back at going back to that 9-to-5, or were you always straight ahead and making that coaching career work for yourself?
Yeah, good question. I think that my first couple of years at Cal were an awesome experience. As soon as I started coaching, I loved it. But from the financial side and the personal side, you have lots of moments when you start out and you're barely making any money, as most young college track coaches are. You have a lot of moments where you say, what in the world am I doing? I can give you at least one of those. I could give you 100, but I'll just give you one. After my first, I think it was my second year, the athletic director realized that I was going to show up every day, and I was, trying to make an effort. And he said, hey, I want to help you out. Like, I know you're not making much, so on Sundays after our home football game, I just need you to come up to the stadium, and I have a group of students that come to clean the stadium, pick up the trash after the games. And I just need you to supervise those students, make sure they show up, make sure they get everything picked up, and that's all you need to do. And I'll give you $100. $100 to me was very valuable at the time. I think by the second game, I showed up and there were 0 students there. So there I was, multiple years out of college, master's degree, professional work experience, picking up trash by myself in a Division II football stadium in southwestern PA, thinking, what are you doing? But, you kind of take it all in perspective, and you just are humble about it, and you're like, well, this is what I need to do right now to do the things that I want to do. And if I have to, pick up trash for a while, or I have to do some other odd jobs, that's not the worst thing in the world, but it can make you think a little bit, that's for sure.
I feel like once you become adult, the two biggest stresses, or at least that have been my biggest stresses, is one, I want to follow my heart and my passion, but financial stress is a real thing. And then the other stress I find is I'm talking to more and more people now is finding your purpose, fulfilling your purpose, and knowing or feeling like you're on that path. That's always been the thing for me, and I'm fortunate that I have Jimmy with me, where he just kind of reminds me that you have everything you need for right now. Yesterday already happened, and tomorrow doesn't exist. So for right now, You've got everything that you need, and then some. So stop pouting and keep doing what you're doing, because I got to get up at 4 a.m. and go to Natural Grocers.
For real, man. I'll trade with you any day. I'll take on that coaching position.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It is this combination of, of course you want to do well financially and you want to be comfortable, and everyone doesn't want to have that stress, but more importantly is finding your purpose and finding something that you feel like you're making a difference, where you're satisfied and you're helping some folks around you.
Did you always know that was your purpose, or through the process of 25 years of coaching that kind of came out?
Did I always know before I started, or since I've done it?
Did you know that was your end game? Like, you always wanted to be a coach and there was nothing else?
No, I think that growing up I knew that I wanted to be in athletics. That's what I knew. I didn't think about coaching for a long time because I didn't think it was an option for me. And then when I got the opportunity to do it and started doing it, then you realize, wow, this is something that it doesn't feel like work at all. And honestly, 4 years at Cal, 24 years here, has never felt like work. So that's a beautiful thing, and not something everybody can say. There wasn't, and you guys may have heard me say this before, there was not one day here or 4 years at Cal that I didn't want to come to work.
You're right. That is a beautiful thing, and I see that quote often. People post that up on socials. That work, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And right. So to have that experience where you're fired up and getting out of bed every morning, ready to go win the day, is a beautiful thing. Because there's even been times in coaching, at the gym or whatever it may be, where that one particular individual, pulls up late and gets out of your car, and it just sets the tone for the next hour. Where so to be able to do that, and coming from a college coaching perspective, where there are so many different personalities, and I always look at the recruiting process of kind of like that honeymoon time period where you are first courting a female, and maybe you're showing them the best version of yourself, but that's maybe not always who you are. You're not always on like that, and I feel like you get a lot of that in the recruiting process, and then all of a sudden kid gets away from mom and dad. There's a couple parties, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, this isn't the person that, I spent the last, 6 to 9 months or even maybe longer for some individuals, trying to get them on campus.
Yeah. Sure, there are moments, absolutely moments in every season and every year. There's those moments of, I can't believe that person did that, or I can't believe I need to do this to get to the next thing. But overall, those are few and far between.
Feeling like you've never worked a day because you're doing your passion. Looking back on that 25 years, is it almost where has all the time gone?
Absolutely. It's funny to, maybe it's because I'm slightly older, not exactly retirement age, but slightly older. It's fun for me to see some alums come together, and sometimes they'll say, do you know, hey, Rich, do you know Jimmy? And Rich will say, yeah, he was on the relay with me, don't you remember? And sometimes I'll say, hey, Rich, do you know Jimmy? And they'll say, no, Coach, he graduated 12 years before me. No, I don't know him. So it's funny because the years do blend together in that way, but then there's moments from every year that jump out, too, especially when you see that person, you get to connect with them. And that's been very rewarding and something I'm very grateful for the last 2 weeks is just hearing from so many people that you did work with here or other places, colleagues or athletes.
Right, and at this point, you're global. We've had, you got Joe Daniels in England, and I'm sure there's been some other, Adam is in Canada, and I'm sure there's been some other people. But yeah, the outpouring of, and I said to you last week, like I wanted to give it a few days, if not a week, to let the phone line, cool off a little bit, because I'm sure you were getting bombarded with the outpouring of. And even at this point, I know for me, some of the guys and gals that I've coached over the years are now, they have families and have kids, and it's one thing at the college level to kind of see that because that's kind of the next step. But the high school level to see that where you're dealing with, 14 to, 18-year-olds. And now all of a sudden I see these people that are like, in some regard, like passing me by in terms of, they've got the family, they've got the house with the white picket fence, and they've got the 2.5 kids, and it's like, man, right. What? I remember when you were a little kid, pretty much.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to see. It's fun to see that happen, and see the different directions that people go. Family, no family, one career, many careers. But it's great to see that and interesting to see it. And some people you keep in close touch with, and some people you don't hear from very much or at all. But
and some people you don't want to hear from, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Some people, yeah, and some people don't want to hear from me.
Yeah, that's. There's always three sides to every story. But I know when you're working with that population of people, sometimes it's not always as common for people to own their stuff.
Yeah. Well, tell you one quick story that makes you really think. We had a young man, it was probably 15 years ago, came in. I remember celebrating in my kitchen when he told us he was coming to Monmouth because he had done very well in high school. And long story short, he spent 2 years doing everything wrong. And after 2 years, I was the last one to kind of give up on him and just say, hey, this wasn't working. And everyone else said, why did you wait so long? And we had to part ways, and he wasn't on the team. Fast forward, I think it was 7 or 8 years from that, and I got a call from him. It turned out to be just a voicemail. We didn't connect by phone, where he sent me this long voicemail apology and saying, how meaningful his 2 years was, and he was awful, and he did everything wrong, but he realizes that now, and he was, doing much better, and the running part didn't go well, but, his teammates and his coaches had made an impact on him that he felt in a positive way much later. And he had no reason to call me to thank me other than, trying to make amends and realize that, he was in a better place at 27 than he was at age 19.
That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Maybe he had an ayahuasca ceremony or two, made him come to the realization.
Well, I had some thoughts about where that may have come from, but I won't speculate.
Coach, Richie was saying before about in our coaching experience, there's always that one person at the CrossFit or at the wrestling gym that comes in and kind of, man, now I got to deal with this person for an hour. How do you, as a coach, you have someone for 4 years and maybe found out that you didn't make the right recruiting decision. How do you handle someone that you might not want on the team or want to deal with anymore, but you have them for another 4 years or 3 years?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I see different coaches do it different ways. I think some people want to, cut their losses and move on as quickly as they can, especially if they feel like someone's going to impact the culture of their team. And I'm a big, team culture person, and I think that's very valuable for any team that's going to be successful. I tend to want to find a way to make it work. And want to find a way for that person to have a role and want to see them get through that and see them become part of what we're doing as opposed to someone that's pulling in the other direction. Can't say that always works, but I would rather they get to the end of the 4 years and they say, you never gave up on me, and get some benefit out of that than for me to be the first one to send them in the other direction. Does that always work? No, I'm sure it doesn't. Does that get in the way sometimes? Yeah, it probably held some things back or took some time that could have gone in other places. But I would much rather do that. Just, and you think about it, and Rich mentioned it, you think about the age group you're dealing with and the changes those folks go through from high school senior to college senior. Sometimes they're just not there yet, and you have to see if you can get them down the road a little bit and get them to a better place.
What was, you don't have to mention any names, but what was the biggest growing process you saw in someone who maybe came in and had nothing together, and by the end they might have been the captain or they were putting out really good times?
Yeah, actually I was thinking about that, and I have a list of names here of people who just didn't have it together and still don't. I'd like to put that out there right now.
Bringing the heat.
Someone that you both know very well, Brendan McGoldrick, is a great example. Here's someone who was not a talented high school athlete and not someone who could be a part of our team as a freshman. Just had to kind of train his way through his freshman year. And like I never became a star on our team. I wasn't a star on my college team. But became really valuable and a really great example of, hey, if you show up and you just work and you have faith in what we're doing, you're going to transform yourself over the course of 4 years and go places and do things you never thought you could do. And then you look at what he's done since. He's become very successful in his own way as a coach and as a mentor for young people because of that perspective and that work ethic and that desire to keep helping people around him and keep getting better in whatever way you can.
Yeah, we love Coach McGee. He's always a hot cup of positivity, and I know whenever I need a little pick me up, if Jimmy's not around, I can reach out to him, and he's just gonna brighten up my day some way. Just hearing his voice and having that pep in his voice is always just a good reminder that life really is good, and everything's gonna work itself out one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that was something I had mentioned to Jimmy the other night. Because now that we're professionals with this, we're really trying to put an effort into prepping and doing things accordingly. And I had said back when I was 19, 20, 21, I was very rammy, and I just wasn't. I couldn't appreciate or didn't understand your Zen-like guru approach. Just to every situation and being level-headed and calm, cool, and collected. Whereas now that I've gotten way more into that aspect of my life and working in, that I have such a great appreciation for that Zen calm in every situation, and even in situations where, at least in my experiences where I thought maybe you might have been a little bit heated, you've always still maintained the ability to not raise your voice and just kind of to have that zen approach. I mean, has that always been your nature with coaching, or is that something that you had when you got to Monmouth and dealing with the knuckleheads that you had when we were there?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think part of that's my personality and that I'm quieter in general, and that translates to my coaching for better or worse. And I'm sure there's folks that would want to hear more noise sometimes, and I'm been fortunate to have a staff where sometimes the noise that was needed would come from someone else. Was the word you used Rammy, R-A-M-M-Y?
Yeah, just like a dog that needs to run all the time, that just wants to go, go, go. And I think that was the beauty of our team, in a sense that, we wanted more. We just wanted to be at that level of like a Villanova or a Georgetown. And genetically, with maybe the exception of Felix, we were all dealing with the cards that we were dealt. And for us, it was, well, if coach says that 2 is good, then 4 is probably going to be even better, and that's going to help us, get to that level. And unfortunately, and I say it all the time to people, that some of my best efforts were not left on the cross country course or at the track the day of the race. It was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday when we were supposed to either be out for a regeneration run, turned into a run that was closing out in sub 5:30 miles, or the 4 or 5 of us racing on the track, instead of being like, hey, why don't we just take turns and you tuck in behind me and I'll lead this one and you do the next one, and then we're all going to get better from it. Where it was like 4 or 5 across, coming across the line, so we all had the same time on our watch. Yeah. Well, that was the beautiful thing of that group that was here when you were here, is, somewhat by good fortune and somewhat by faith of some people in us and some work on our part, we collected this small group of good distance runners. Now, we weren't going to be as deep as some of the other better teams in the region. There were only going to be 5, 6 guys who could call themselves strong distance runners, who could be competitive, but a very good group that could be competitive. But part of what that group was dictated what I was doing at the time, and that was that I wanted to have us be successful as quick as we can and get us as far as we could. But I also know we didn't have a whole lot of margin for error. So when you guys were thinking, 2 was good and 4 was better, I was thinking, well, 2 is good and 3 is safe, and we better be a little bit safe, or we're going to be a lot broken. And then not only are we not better than we were, but we're nowhere to be found. So I think that's the situation that we were in, and we've certainly made the most of that at the time. And some of that's changed as you get a bigger group, and you have some more depth and you can do more. But I still would much rather keep a group healthy than do so much that you're rolling the dice and just saying, all right, it's all or nothing. Right, and that's been my perspective as I've gotten older as a coach, where early on it was just results, like we need to win everything, and I maybe didn't always have the team or the athletes. It was all about like getting to that next level or putting that top time up there, or that top relay. And now, as I've gotten older, Coach McGee and I talked about it last week, where now my goal is I want people, whether it's high school or college, to be lifelong runners. Like, I want to set you up with the skill set so that you do this for the rest of your life, because it's about the long game. And that, maybe that's because now I'm 43 and I'm still running 100-mile races, where, a lot of the guys that were faster than me back in the day in high school and college have families, kids, and maybe don't even run at all. But at the same time, at the college level, where results are a lot more important, it's kind of tough to have that balance between, I want these kids to grow up and be adults and be professionals, but I also want to have results, because that's, at the end of the day, this is a Division I program, so it's tough to kind of balance those two, maybe in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for for every coach, at every level. Is even if you're a personal trainer and you know that someone needs to work on something for a long chunk of time before they're going to get better at it, and you know that they may not come back for week 2 or week 3 unless they see some kind of progress. You always have that balance. Youth coach, high school coach, college coach, professional coach, coach of recreational athletes. There's always going to be that kind of balance at some point. And I think it goes back to that expression of, before someone cares what you know, they need to know that you care. And that sounds like a cliche, but it's true. If they know that you care and that you're there with them and you're working towards the same objective, then chances are good they're going to have faith and you can make some progress with that person and with that group.
Coach, first of all, you were always someone who I saw from the outside as someone who always cared, and that was always an attribute I saw in you, someone who always kind of took time with Richie and talked things out with him. When we're on the topic of Richie or that group of guys maybe going too hard in training, one story I want to touch on, it's one of my favorite stories from Richie because it kind of just sums up the Airey Bros in a nutshell.
I know where you're going. Go ahead.
There was a workout in August. I believe you guys call it the lawn, out in front of the Big Daddy Warbucks house on the campus of Monmouth.
The Great Lawn. The
Great Lawn. And you guys were doing 800s, and it was maybe the last week of August, and you guys just came back, and Richie was throwing down the hammer like the IC Flores was tomorrow, and he was getting ready to kill it, and he had too much at that point in the season, and he always says that. What was your perspective on that, seeing this kid in August being ready to kill it and to have a good season, but you knew he might have peaked way too soon and might not have anything left at the end of the season? What were you thinking? How did you handle that situation? And 25 years later, how would you handle that situation?
Wow. Well, I remember that vividly. As a young coach, one of my first years here, you have this group. You have some guys that put in some work in the summer. I knew Rich put in a good amount of work, and I knew that I think I knew by that point that what I had given him on paper, he had done that and perhaps slightly more.
If 2 is good, 4 is better, Coach.
Yeah. And so he was pretty sharp. We're doing, it's 800 meters around the Great Lawn, beautiful setting by Wilson Hall, right on campus, all grass, not 1 second of shade on the whole loop. So, hard workout. And Rich's last 800 was pretty close to 2 flat. It was under 205. So as a coach, I know that we have a slim margin of error with our group. I know that was a huge confidence boost for him to be able to rip that and know that he was fitter than he'd ever been. But I also knew I had to get creative and that, IC4As and conference and regionals were not the next day. They were, 8, 10, 12 weeks away. So that we had to manage that situation. So the wheels start turning as far as, all right, how am I going to get this person to the end of the season? But in the moment, I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to make sure I don't need to destroy the confidence of this person who has clearly worked really hard to get here and clearly cares a lot. So you're balancing those two things in your head. What would I do differently now in that situation? I might try to physically stop that person before they got to that point. And also we have a different team environment where somebody on the team might make sure that didn't happen before it happened. But it still happens. I think there's always going to be that person or that group that says, yeah, you said to do them at this pace, but let's try it at this pace. And, you have to manage that. And I'm sure I'm better at managing that now than I was then. As a young coach, you're thinking hard about how am I going to do this. But you don't want to, you don't want to destroy that person in front of their teammates, or even if it was one-on-one, because then they think that everything is wrong, and everything wasn't wrong. It was just we were just a little further along the road than we wanted to be at that point.
And I can remember that summer before we got to camp, we would meet up every once in a while throughout the summer just to go for a run and touch base and stuff. And I remember we were either running through Long Branch towards the boardwalk, or we were already at the boardwalk, and we were a handful of miles in. And I can remember mid-conversation, you turned and looked to me and you said, "Do you always run this fast on your runs?"
Because clearly I was suffering at the time, trying to slow down the pace for your benefit and for my benefit.
I feel your pain, Coach Joe. There's not a run I go out with Richie. I'm like, "You trying to drop me right now, dude? I thought we were going for a jog."
And I'm like, "How am I trying to drop you? I'm behind you."
Yeah, he's got these Jedi mind tricks, though, Coach, where he pushes pace from behind. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but Richie does it really well, and I've seen him break many people from running behind them.
That's a special skill.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to brag about that though, because now that I'm trying to be more Zen-like, I don't want that moniker. I don't want that aura out there that's my being.
Bro, you got the Jedi mind trick running powers. That's part of the whole package.
Yeah, as long as people know that you can do that, but that you might not necessarily do that, then you're okay. They just need to know that you have some magic and that you'll use it as needed.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a buddy and a client who, when we run together, every time he stops his watch or uploads to Strava, he says, "Well, that was my fastest run by 30 minutes at this particular location or this particular route."
So on the topic of Richie, so we don't go back to it, I need to know what Coach Joe's favorite Rich Airey moment or Rich Airey story is.
Do I have to pick just one?
We got plenty of time, Coach. We got the studio booked, so feel free.
Yeah, well, I think I can give you three really easily. Three great ones. As you both know, but as everyone may not know, Rich was a conference champ when he was here in the steeplechase, and the steeplechase is not an easy event for anyone, and especially not easy when you're not tall. So Rich managed the challenge of not being a tall distance runner well, and was a very good steepler. Managed the barriers well, could handle workouts and races over them pretty well, and that's one of those things I wish we had 4 years to work on instead of just a couple. But was a conference champ in the steeple, was leading an event, made a decisive move in the second half of the race, got away from everyone, got through the water the last time, one barrier to go, teammates are fired up, and Rich hits the last barrier and goes to the ground. So then you're thinking about, all of a sudden this moment that looks really good, that was going to be less than 10 seconds away from being really good, looks like it's going to be really awful. But Rich, being a wrestler, being a tough guy, being a competitor, got up off the ground, maintained his lead, made it a little more dramatic and gave some guys hope for a few seconds, but then managed to win the race and win a steeplechase title. So that would be one for sure.
Very reminiscent of this year's NCAA championships too.
Yes. So I don't think the guy who fell won this year, did he? I can't recall.
Well, there was two guys that fell. The first guy that fell in the water jump, he didn't, from Indiana, I believe he was, and then the second guy fell over the last barrier like I did. He was from Stanford, I believe, and he pulled the Rich Airey and got up and won.
Yeah. So that's an event where there's, people love watching that event because it's like a NASCAR race. You're never sure if there's going to be a crash or some fire or something that happens. But, so that would be one, and another one from track. As a fan of lots of sports, one of my favorite moments in sports is seeing a team enjoy the victory celebration, whatever it is. Those moments right after a team wins a championship or an individual wins, just their reaction. And I remember Rich going up to get, as one of our captains, going up to get our team trophy after our team had won. And that was a championship that we weren't supposed to win, and a group of guys that had to be really special, really focused, really together to win. And there wasn't certainly wouldn't want to call it an arrogance, but there was a confidence as Rich walked up to sort of say, yeah, we did this. We came here and we did this with his teammates, enjoying that with him. And I have a picture of that, like an old-fashioned snapshot of that, along with a picture in my head. So that would be another special one for sure.
Was that your first conference title?
That was, yeah. So that was 1998. My year correct, Rich?
Yes, that was the year. That was what.
Yeah. So we're at Mount St. Mary's. They were the defending champs. Very very good team. Had won the conference a lot of years in a row, and we had a group that didn't have the star power, the firepower as far as our top performers they did, but had some depth and had some guys who were really hungry that did a lot of things that weren't expected of them. So that's very special. So, if I were to give you one more.
All right.
Rich also broke our school record. I think it was at the Raleigh Relays in the 5K. I have my story right, Rich?
Well, no, I didn't break I broke the school record in the 10K. That was at Colonial, but at Raleigh, I ran my fastest time in the 5K, and I may have won my heat that year.
Yeah, I thought that was school record at the time, but I could be wrong. But it was both of those. Your 5K PR and your 10K school record were moments where we started to do some things that we hadn't done before. And there had been some great individuals on the team at Monmouth before, but not the guys who were at that level, and not the number of guys who are kind of knocking down the school records and starting to challenge people at the front of races that we just hadn't had as much prior to that as a team.
Now, being a cross-country track coach over the years, what do you prefer? Do you prefer being on the track? Do you prefer coaching cross-country?
I always loved the season that we were in. I think as an athlete, when I started, I loved cross-country, and at first I did not like indoors at all, but then I quickly realized by, my third year of running, which was my first year of college, that indoors you didn't have to worry about conditions at all. So then indoors I liked that a lot more. So I like all three for different reasons. Indoors has this special intensity, kind of closed space intensity that you love. It almost is like wrestling in that way, where everyone's right in this cramped space. Outdoors is the traditional season, the one that means the most to a lot of people. And cross country is super special because you have a group that's all doing the same thing. You have a group that's getting on the line, and it's a shared experience as far as what they're going through and what they're working for together. And those folks are often training side by side every day in the fall.
Going back.
You said they're each special.
Oh, yeah. I like that answer, and I like the season that I'm in, where I'm at right now. That's the season I like the most. I like that answer. Going back to your point before about the team that Richie was on, I was younger, so all those guys were like superheroes to me. But it was a special team. You had 5 or 6 really strong distance runners. Was it a constant growth after those guys graduated, or were there lulls where you might not have those distance runners, and over time you started building back up?
Yeah, there are definitely some lulls. There's been some steady growth in some ways, but there are some lulls where we just weren't as strong. And as a coach, those seasons where you take a little step backwards with a group, you start to wonder. You think, well, geez, am I doing something wrong? The first place you look is in the mirror to think if you need to do something different. So ups and downs for sure, but in general, the program overall is that group got things started, and there's been some steady growth, and that's been part of it. Is we can look at what someone has done before, whether it's the record board or championships or other things, and there's a different expectation now than there was in the late 90s or even 10 years ago. There's a different expectation as far as what should happen and what can be accomplished.
And at this point, has Has the record board for indoor and outdoor track been completely rewritten during your era?
Yes. Our oldest school record is Augie Zillenkar, 1968, first All-American in Monmouth school history, well before my time. And that is one of the few records that is, maybe the only record that is from before my time. So just about all of them have changed. He has held strong. We haven't been able to get that one, and we still see him around, which is awesome. And he's given our hammer throwers a huge mark to chase, because he was a big-time hammer thrower before Monmouth even had a hammer cage or had a full-time coach.
And was he a local guy?
He was. He transferred to Monmouth from Villanova. He was local, went away, then came back to Monmouth College at the time. And Monmouth was not Division I, but at the time, if you did well at Division III nationals, you could advance to Division I NCAAs, and that's what he did, and became a Division I All-American at Monmouth before Monmouth was Division I in any sport.
Oh wow, I didn't know that little tidbit of his story.
Yeah.
Was Joe Madden the one that came the closest to breaking his record, or has there been someone in between Joe and now?
He was. We've had a few that have been in that neighborhood that have gotten close, but Joe was the one who has done the most. Joe scored at conference in all three throws, shot, disc, hammer. Was the conference MVP at least once, if not twice. And went to NCAAs, made All-American in the hammer. So he got very close and had a great career, and I think should be in the Monmouth Hall of Fame. And we're going to keep working until we get him in there, because he certainly deserves to be in there with Augie and some of the others.
Yeah. What other guys are in there from? Like, is John in there? Is Calness in there?
John Calness is in the Hall of Fame. Tiffany Taylor. So John was a three-time All-American. Tiffany Taylor is in the Hall of Fame. She was an All-American in the long jump. She reminded me just recently that she came in the office to quit after 2 years, and we convinced her to stay, and then she was an All-American less than 2 years later. Ed Hendricks is in there. Ed Hendricks was a great distance runner in the 80s, also before my time, for John Cooey. And John Cooey had a really good middle distance group that took us a while for us to break those school records. And Mel Allmeyer's in there. Mel Allmeyer ran 150 and 407 for the mile. And he did that here in the 70s. So he's in the Hall of Fame as well.
Did he run for John?
He ran for, no, he was local guy, went to Eastern Michigan, wasn't happy there, came back to Monmouth and had at least two, if not three different coaches in his couple years here. Bob Baisley was one of his coaches, who's a local physical therapist, and he had a couple different coaches. I've seen his training logs. The training that he did was crazy hard, and did a big amount of work and had some great results. He ran, side by side with Don Page and some of the great guys from the 70s that ended up being Olympians.
Coach, you were just saying how well you guys have done in field events. I know you guys have had good throwers, have had good long jumpers. Coming from being a distance runner, just speak on how you kind of built those programs to have all the success you've had in those areas.
When I came in, I was the first full-time coach that Monmouth had. So I had the luxury of being here all day, which all the previous coaches didn't. They were trying to do everything they could while they had another job somewhere, and I was able to devote all my time to this. And one of my first assistant coaches was Mark Gottenker, who you both know well. Mark and I took a look at the conference, the Northeast Conference, when we came in, and that was the place we felt like we could make an impact right away. In the Northeast Conference at the time, there were some elite distance runners. There have been some Olympians in the conference in the distance events in particular. The field events were not as deep, and the throws in particular are a place where we felt like we could make an impact right away. And with some recruiting of those guys who often get overlooked, and with some amazing coaching by Mark Gottinker, he's a wizard, that group got very good very fast. It really only took a couple of years for us to have some pole vaulters, some jumpers, and a lot of throwers that could make an impact at the conference level. And then, very soon some of them were making an impact beyond the conference level.
Yeah, excuse me. That was where I really developed my what's the word I'm looking for here? Appreciation, yeah, for the throws. I can remember looking back on that first conference title and the second one, where we as distance runners would get done with our events, and we would always make sure that we were over at the throws. So, and it was always funny that the throwers kind of always had this bond with the distance runners, and I can remember for us, there was always a little bit of like smack talking that would go on between, these big, ginormous guys and these 120 to 130 pound little pipsqueak distance runners. And we used to sass Monroe all the time. Dave Monroe, shout out, we love you, bro. So yeah, that kind of just fostered that appreciation for all those other events where, we were going to try to do our best to get it done. But like you said, we had, there were some Olympians and some other pretty top-level studs from Mount, and then later St. Francis came along with their crop of guys. So we were going to do the best that we could, but we knew that we needed to support those guys because they were going to come in. And I can remember there were times where, if we were scoring the top 8, there were times where we had, 5, 6, maybe even 7 guys coming home with medals and scoring points for us. And I could remember just these goofy little guys, jumping up and down at the throw circles when, and I've always just been like, when a guy like rips a throw and just has that, like that, I always just that sort of just explosion just fires me up all the time, even to this day, like watching the guy from, I believe he's from North Dakota State, or like an Adam Nelson, because I can remember him competing and then getting to watch him in the Olympics and stuff, and just that fire and that passion when those guys get a good mark, it really resonates with me and gets me excited to see those things. And that's all goes back to that 1998 season where we were like, yeah, we're gonna get a bunch of points here, and no one's gonna be paying attention to it because everyone's thinking about this guy on the track or that guy on the track that's gonna get win a 1 or 2 events, but we're gonna score in every event across the board, and we're gonna surprise you.
Yeah, and that was the goal, was to leave no stone unturned, to score in every event, and then have some events where we could score a lot in. I knew that tradition was in place by, you remember Paulo Oliveira, who was a little bit younger than you, but I remember him coming to me in the middle of a championship after we'd won 2 or 3, and one of the first events was the hammer throw, and it was established by that point that was an area where we were going to do pretty well, and we scored, I'm pretty sure it was 30 or 31 points in the hammer, and Paulo came down the hill to me and said, we scored 31 points in the hammer. Is that going to be enough? And I thought, are you kidding? Do you think 31 points is not enough in any event?
Right.
That's pretty good. Yes, that's going to be. It better be enough. We better do enough in other places where that's enough. So,
Coach, you said you sat down with Mark and you kind of looked where the holes were in the conference and realized that you could really make up some distance and some points in the field events. I would like you to talk on just being a head coach is not so much coaching as it is managing and strategy and stuff like that. How much, or at what point did you kind of figure that out where, I need to more manage my assistants and manage everything around me as a coach opposed to worrying about all the workouts?
I think that happened for me pretty quick, and I'd like to think that coming to coaching from other things may have helped me there, where I knew that I wasn't going to do any of this by myself. I was going to need good assistance. I was going to need good support from the school, which certainly I've had since day one. And, we were going to have to assemble a group of student athletes who believed in what we were doing. And when you can do that, then it is going to happen. When you can, and that's one of the things I've loved more recently about my staff is, and I've told them this, I never have to worry on a Tuesday about what the jumpers might be doing or what the sprinters might be doing, or really any group. And I can go and, give them a high five and support them, but I'm not worried about, are you doing too many of these, not enough of these, or doing the right things, because they're great at what they do. So having those great coaches around you is a huge difference maker, and is the difference maker between being successful and not being successful.
Vince Lombardi always said you pick the right team, you always win, right?
Right.
So looking back on 24 years and 58 conference titles, is there, on both the men's and women's program, is there one particular team that stands out more than any others as opposed or as the most dominant team from across all those years? Is there one? I mean, obviously you guys have won IC4As and ECACs, which in itself is an amazing feat and incredible accomplishment. Would you say that those two teams were your most dominant teams, or was there other teams that kind of stick out?
Just most recently, this year's men's team, what they were able to do was pretty incredible. They're finishing second and third at IC4As indoors and outdoors, and then at the conference meet, in a conference that has gotten stronger in a lot of ways, scored 339 points. They scored more points than any team in the country at their conference championships. But I could go back and it was only a couple of years ago that the women's team was almost that dominant, and then it was in the top three at ECACs, and winning the university race at ECACs in cross country, and winning the conference by a big margin. So there's a lot of groups that have been super strong in different ways, and in the environment they're in at the time.
Is it hard to make friends when you're putting up 300-plus points on teams?
I don't know. You'll have to ask my fellow coaches that. I don't know. It's been great, honestly, in the NEC and in the MAAC. This good group of coaches that have been very professional, and you're colleagues with them. You're not spending a lot of social time with them. At least I'm not. But there's a mutual respect of seeing them be great at what they're great at, whether it's assembling a full team like we are, or picking an event area and being awesome in that event area. You look at some teams where our biggest challenge was overcoming the strength of a group that was great in the sprints or great in the distance events with our full team in track, and knowing that they were going to dominate the things that they were the best at.
Do you have a particular coach or a particular team that you would say was your rival, or was that constantly changing?
Yeah, that changes from year to year. And we have really tried to focus on, hey, let's do what we do. There's always going to be someone that's coming to get us, and there's always going to be certainly a lot of teams in the country that are better than us that we're trying to go get. So there's no shortage. And it changes over the years who you're kind of down to the wire with at a conference meet, or who you're trying to catch at a IC4A, ECAC kind of meet. It's been fun the last couple of years to be at NCAAs and have some people get in the final and score for us. And at NCAAs, that's all it takes is one or two people to score, and all of a sudden you're on the scoreboard in front of a bunch of schools. And maybe that's not the fairest way to determine what the best schools are in the country, but that is what it is. And it's been fun to do that a few times as well.
What has that been like, almost staring at the brass ring, trying to get an All-American, trying to get people to NCAAs, and then making that happen? Was it one of those things where you got there and it's like, oh, I made such a big deal of this, it's nothing, or was it something you really savored and were proud of?
Yeah, I think we absolutely savor that. It's so tough to do that you really savor every one of those folks who can make it. We had 2 folks make it indoors this year and 3 outdoors, and seeing them do the work to get there, and then being there is always special. We don't take that for granted. We would like to, and I think the program can do more of that going forward, but there's no guarantee. And I saw some numbers. We can talk about this for a long time, but I'll give you quick numbers. The participant-wise, if you look at sports, you compare NCAA sports, the smallest percentage of participants that get to an NCAA championship are in Division I indoor track and Division I outdoor track that get that kind of experience. The smallest by far is Division I indoor track and field, as far as the number of people who do it and the number of people who get to actually compete at the NCAA championships. So getting some people like we've had to that one, getting an Allie Wilson there this year with Chris Torello's guidance, getting a Corey Murphy there in the shot put with Christian Spalding's guidance, that's just really special and very, very hard to do.
Yeah, very, very hard, and those people are very special athletes to be able to achieve something like that. Over time, you've had 58 conference championships. You've had people go to NCAAs. You've laid a pretty good foundation for the program. Now, leaving the program this year, where would you like to see the program go in the future? Where do you think the program can go? And will Coach Joe have his hands in that at all?
Well, I said to Dr. McNeil, Dr. McNeil's our athletic director, and she's been the athletic director the entire time I've been here, 24 years. Certainly one of the best athletic directors in the country. And there's a lot of people that will agree with me on that one. I said to her that there's absolutely no reason why this program can't keep going forward, and that's why I'm really excited to see what can happen. I'm here for the next month to help with the search and help put some things in place for whoever comes next. But I think there's no reason why it can't keep going forward. Everything is here with her help and with the school's help. We have the facilities now. We didn't have the facility when Rich was in school. We have more resources than we had then. We have more scholarships than we had then. We have a full staff. When I first started, it was myself and a couple part-time assistants, and now we have a much bigger staff that the school supports. So all these pieces are in place to give Monmouth an opportunity to continue climbing, to continue being at the top of the conference. Never easy for us or any school in any conference, but to continue being there and to have more people and a bigger presence at the national level.
Has having those new facilities, has that just helped improve recruiting by leaps and bounds, to have that beautiful indoor track and the new outdoor facility and the stadium and everything? Have you seen a bump from that?
We have. I think that we can have discussions with people that may not think about us otherwise. And so it helps from the recruiting perspective. Monmouth has always been a beautiful place, but now the athletic piece is even more beautiful and more functional than ever. It also has helped a lot training-wise. When you were here, Rich, we did what we could, where we could in the winter, and that involved doing some intervals that were marked by snowballs on a road. We don't have to do that anymore. We can get on an indoor track in the winter, and if it's a quality day that we're trying to get a certain something done in any event group, you're able to get that work done. And not everybody in the Northeast can do that. Not even everybody in our conference can do that. So we're fortunate that way, that recruiting-wise and perhaps more so training-wise, we can do the things that we need to do and that we know are going to help us get stronger.
I could only imagine if we were able to run indoors some of those cold, wintry days back in the day. We do have maybe a favor to ask of you. If you do happen to come across Dr. McNeil, saying then whenever you guys cross paths again, just plant in the little seed that the Airey Bros would be interested in starting a Division One women's wrestling program.
Well, I know that's taken off.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big growth area. It's a shame that for a number of years, men's wrestling and men's track were taking a hit as schools were trying to meet federal requirements, including my alma mater that got rid of the men's side for track and cross country, which is a shame. That I'm glad to say has mostly stopped, and schools have found a different way to do that and realized that our sport is not very expensive and wrestling is not very expensive and brings in some quality student athletes. And now there's the women's side, which is brand new. And you think about 18 to 20 years ago, women's pole vault and women's steeplechase were new, and at first those events were not very strong and people were brand new to them, and now those events are super competitive and very popular. Women's wrestling can be the same thing.
Yeah, Lock Haven just recently made history by adding the first Division I women's wrestling program, and there are a lot of NAIA schools, Division II schools that have a lot of programs. And I think just by seeing what Rutgers has done with Coach Goodale and their program on the men's side, I don't know if we could pitch men's wrestling at Monmouth.
They have a club now. They have a club.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I follow them on social media.
Okay. So maybe that's not too far-fetched, but I think, if we plant that seed with Dr. McNeil about women's wrestling, I think she's always kind of been on the forefront for women's athletics and stuff like that. So, Dr. McNeil, if you're listening, the Airey Bros would love to sit down with you and present our business plan to start the women's wrestling for the Hawks at Monmouth University.
I think that's a great idea. We want to keep growing. We have a lot more sports now than we did 20 years ago, and hoping we can keep adding to that.
Coach, you briefly mentioned Title IX and track programs and wrestling programs getting cut out at different schools. And I know you said the last time you were on with Richie that they were kind of putting all their chips on you, and if it didn't work out, then, that was it. Was there times where you were worried about that program getting cut?
I really wasn't. I did, when I first came in, Dr. McNeil was honest, and, they had part-time coaches who, were having their ups and downs here, and she said to me, we'll support track and cross-country, and if it goes well, we'll continue to support it, and if it doesn't, perhaps this is not a sport we want to sponsor. So as a young coach, you think, all right, I'm going to go to work right now. But that support was always there. They were supportive the whole way, and I never felt like that was the case. And also knowing Dr. McNeil and her philosophy, that wasn't a place that she wanted to go. She did not want to cut sports. She was working with the administration to say, hey, athletics is going to be a great thing and is a great thing at a school like Monmouth. It brings people to campus. It creates a positive environment, brings some special people to campus that, you get someone to an NCAA championship or to a high level in any sport. You can't buy that advertising as far as promoting your school and getting the name of the school out there. So no, I never felt like there was that imminent threat that we were about to be extinct, I'm glad to say.
Right, because that snowball got rolling pretty quickly, and it's just been getting bigger and bigger and bigger ever since 1998.
Yeah. So that's helped. It's helped that we've done well, but we've done well in large part because they've supported us.
It's always good to have the support from the higher-ups in the athletic department and foster that community family environment, and that when everybody does better mindset, and that's one of the beautiful things about MU. Now, I know you said you're still there for another month, and I know you got some events coming up, running related stuff. If you want to speak to any of those things, I know I've been following the posts on social media, and like I said before, I had coffee with Mr. Siegel this morning, who will be coming in shortly this week to get him on as well. But, the Monmouth Mile is coming up. It looked like it was a great event last year. There was, I think, 4, maybe 5 guys that went under 4 minutes. It looks like a pretty solid field here. That's coming up in a couple weeks?
It is. So, we have 3 things coming up on campus. I have a clinic with Lisa Morgan, who's been the Team USA coach that we're doing this weekend, and we're excited about that. It's a track and field clinic. We have our shore running experience, which is our overnight distance running camp, which we do with Rob DeFilippis from Runners High and Noah Olmeyer from Shore Regional. And then we have the Monmouth Mile. This is year 2 for the Monmouth Mile. Last year, 4 guys went under 4 minutes, and it was the fastest mile in the state of New Jersey in more than 20 years. So that was a fun night. A couple hundred people who were there that night, plus our campers. This year's going to be even bigger, and it's going to be even better. I know that we have a field that we haven't announced yet that's coming, that there's going to be a very strong field of pros who are coming to us right after the U.S. Championships. And it's going to be, last year our track was under construction. This year it'll be at the Monmouth track, which will be awesome. We'll have a great environment for that, and we're going to see some fast times. It's going to be a fun night. So that one is August 1st. It's the night of August 1st. We have some community races, so anybody can come and run a mile if they want to, and have some alums that are challenging themselves, or challenging each other, I should say, to come and get off the couch and run a mile against each other.
Oh, really?
Yep. Hopefully they don't hurt themselves.
Anyone I know?
And, there are a few younger guys who you may not know, but they're asking how do they get in, and can they make sure they get in the same heat with their old teammates so they can race against each other.
Oh.
So that'll be fun. There'll be some younger, some youth runners, some masters runners who will come, and we'll have some heats based on time for those folks leading up to the main event, which is going to be an elite men's race, and perhaps, if all goes well, an elite women's race as well.
Any chance we could get an alumni heat?
Well, what's the line from Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. So
yeah.
We're here.
Book the flight, Richie.
I might be on Skiplag tonight to see if I can find a little cheap flight that I can come in under the cover of darkness like a ninja and just show up.
Get your Monmouth Grays on.
How about this? I promise a Monmouth Gray or an old Monmouth singlet to every Monmouth alum who comes and finishes the mile, and that I don't have to carry off the track.
All right. Well, I can guarantee you I will finish, and you won't have to carry me. How fast it is, I don't know.
In fact, for you, Rich, you're going to do one, and then you're going to challenge people anybody who's in front of you to the best out of 15. So,
I figure we could just do a 24-hour race, and I'll just keep going. You guys can come out from camp the next morning and check on me, see if I'm still moving.
That'll be good. That'll be fun.
Coach, it's been an honor. Really appreciate your time having you come on. You've done amazing things, and you've changed a lot of lives, and it's just been a beautiful thing to watch over the last 24 years. And like I said when we first got on here, sometimes it's hard to say that it's been 24 years. It seems like a blink of an eye. You go from being 21 to being 43, and where did the time go? And you start using things like back in my day, and all these crazy things, or like when people tell you how old they are, and I love this is one I got from Zatorsky, but I always say I got socks older than you.
Yeah. Well, it has. It's gone very fast. It's been a blast. I still want to stay connected to Monmouth and to the Monmouth alums. I think of it as a family, and I want that family to stay together, and I want us to continue doing some things together as much as we can.
That's awesome.
So
and
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you having you coming on with us. But I'll leave you with one last thing, and I'll let you get out of here. We have always joked over the last 24 years that the first time that my mom, Lorraine Airey, met you, the first, she's very blunt and to the point when she says things. So the first time that she met you, you introduced yourself, and I'm pretty sure the first thing she said to you was, "Oh, you're young."
Yeah, she said, "You're way too young."
Right. Well,
those were her first 4 words to me. You're way too young.
Right.
I think I'm sure I tried to say no, I'm not. But yeah, she probably wouldn't say that anymore.
Well, hold on a minute. When I called home to let them know that you know that it came out and it was posted that you had retired, her response was, "Well, he's young." So it's come full circle. You can't win with her one way or the other. You're too young, whether you're coming in or you're going out. So I just figured I'd share that with you, and that would probably get a little laugh. But we really go ahead.
Says I'm still too young. I'm okay with that. She can keep saying that as long as she wants.
Yeah, because now we got to get you like an Aloha shirt and a pair of flip flops, and we'll get you out here and take you to a show at Red Rocks.
Sounds great.
Right on. Joe, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Maybe I'll be seeing you this summer, if not in the fall. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your summer. And, every day's Saturday now, but it's a different Saturday.
Yeah, Rich, Jimmy, thank you. I'm grateful that you had me on, and I look forward to seeing you guys more. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you. Congratulations on a great career.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Bye. Joe Compagni, ladies and gentlemen. He's, like we've said, he's been a coach at Monmouth University for 24 years, 58 conference titles, numerous Coach of the Year awards, both at the NEC, at the MAAC conference, at the ECAC, the IC4A level, and along with USA Track and Field and some of those other coaching organizations. Just a great guy. You know, over the years, as I said, it seems like 24 years goes by in the blink of an eye. But as I said to you the other night, you know, I really have appreciation for his Zen-like demeanor. And, you know, unfortunately, I just, at the time when I was 18, was very, very rammy and just wanted to do more to get to the top. Now been able to really appreciate his approach and his mindset and his demeanor, and is really something that I strive to be like, just as an individual, but even more so as a coach, especially working with younger individuals.
Yeah, it's one of those things in sports where you don't realize that everything is a lesson and it's to better you in your life at the time you're trying to win those gold medals and get your hand raised and break those records. But I know Coach Joe is someone who's had an impact on you over time, and you know, the older you get, the more I see more of those Coach Joe qualities coming out in you. So it's just one of those things where, you know, you might have not appreciated it when you were there, but you have a whole nother appreciation for him and his coaching style, and it makes you want to be that and better yourself in those areas.
No, 100%. You know, and I think it's just hard in the moment as a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to think about the long game and to put your blinders on and not worry about what so-and-so from Villanova is doing, or, you know, the kid from CBA that's now at North Carolina or whatever it may be. You know, it's tough to kind of focus on the long game. You don't have an appreciation for the long game when you're late teens, early 20s. You know, it's just like, I want it here, I want it now. And now, looking back, I am much more grateful of that, and still the fact that I am still passionate about running every day and helping other people in their running goals and chase those goals, and really hammering home to them that it is a long game. We want this to be a lifelong practice, and at some point, you know, it can always be competitive, but at some point it should be able to become a spiritual practice or a mindful practice. And I think that's kind of where I'm at, where, like, when I go for runs with people that they can't believe that I don't wear a watch or that I don't care, you know, pace to me is not important, or I'm not worrying if I'm standing at a stoplight for 30 seconds or 90 seconds or 2 minutes or waiting to cross the street. Like that, back then I'd be the guy running in place. You know, I'd be running
doing burpees at the light.
Yeah, something crazy like that, where now it's just like, cool, I'm gonna just breathe into this moment, and when I cross the street, I'll start again. It's been a process. It's been, you know, you're growing up all the time, you know, and I think that's the most important thing to really hammer home, is that you've always got to be trying to level up in all areas of your life, whether it's athletically, nutritionally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it may be. Like you can't plateau. Like it's always striving for that 1% that we talked about with Coach McGee.
Well, I think that's where the competition only can bring you to a certain point, right? When you're just going for material things and things of this world, you're only going to get things of this world. When you get to a point where it's a spiritual practice or something that you put intent into, it becomes a whole other thing. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen without experience. That doesn't happen without mistakes and learning in the process. So it's hard to have that long game hindsight when you're 18 to 24, but as you grow older, you start to realize things that one of your coaches or Coach Joe said, like, oh, that's what he meant then, or that's what he was trying to explain to me or have me do. And it's that song, Ooh La La. You wish you knew what you knew now when you were younger, but you did. You had people telling you. It's just being young, being brash, thinking you know everything, and that's why there are coaches. That's why there are elders in certain aspects or in certain areas in life. Those people have wisdom. They're not the grumpy old men, or they're not the people who think they know more. They just have more experience, and you and I both know experience is worth more than any book you could read, anything you can get from a classroom. It's all about your experience.
Absolutely, and it's a perfect segue, maybe. We got to see that experience come out on top firsthand this weekend with Uriah Faber. After a 2-year retirement, he comes in. Probably, I don't know if he was the underdog. I think between the two of us, he was probably the underdog going up against that kid Ricky Simone. And it may have been an early stoppage, but I mean, he looked good. And there is something to be said about experience and just having those sorts of things to fall back on, and also having the mindset to know, like, if we're talking in terms of like running, I say it all the time, or you remind me all the time too, is I've got years and years and years and years and years and years on top of just money in the bank. Some of these younger guys are out doing 100, 120, 150-mile weeks. Here I am, and I'm doing 40, 50, 60-mile weeks, and I'm still competitive, if not beating some of these guys in some of those longer races, and it's just having that experience.
Having that experience and having that confidence in your experience, I think that's a big thing, too, because I know in my wrestling career or even in jiu-jitsu, the experience was there, but the mental side was not always there. It was always like, oh, I'm not the chosen one, or oh, that's not my karma. And when you think things like that, those things are going to come to fruition. One thing, to get back to the Uriah Faber topic, is I really think there's something to these guys having kids. You saw it in Cowboy, you saw it in Uriah. I see it in Gucci, one of my good friends. I think it gives you a whole new perspective, almost a psychedelic perspective to life, because things become surreal to you. And I think that helps with the maturity and kind of puts your focus on something besides just winning, right? There's more of a purpose behind that. Now, I'm not saying I'm having kids anytime soon. That's just something I've observed and have seen.
Well, I can remember a time where I may have not been on the path. I may have fallen off the path, or just been living a little bit of a reckless life, or maybe not taking care of my body in the right way in certain regards. And I can remember driving you to wrestling, and at one point, maybe I've been telling you a story, I can't remember or not, but you turned to me and you said, you need to settle down and have a family and have a kid, because you need purpose in your life.
Well, just to give some background on where that was coming from, I had just gotten home from Sam Calvita's Internal Warrior Wrestling Camp and was all Bible thumping and trying to save everyone. So, that was coming from an 18-year-old kid at the time who knew nothing about purpose and couldn't even define the word for you. I was just spitting at what was being told to me. Again, I can't speak from experience because I don't have a kid. I don't even have a dog. So I don't know on that aspect of things of purpose. That's just something I've observed. But I knew when you started telling that story, I knew where you were going.
Yeah, still don't have that purpose.
I think the purpose is our tribe, dog, the Airey Bros Daily Challenge, Dog Pound. We've got a tribe of people out there that we're vibing off of every day. They're vibing off of us. That's my purpose, you know. When we went and had our last experience, you know, one thing I came running to you with was our purpose is to spread purpose. And that's what I think we're doing with the Daily Challenge, with the Dog Pound, and putting that vibe out there. And, you know, days where I'm not feeling it, someone, you know, Jeffers, Corey, Emily, Coach Fitz, you know, is tagging us and repping us, and that gives me the little boost, the push on the back to keep going, because we're not alone. You know, some days you might be in the woods or you might be climbing up a mountain and think you're alone, but you got your tribe that's always there to tap into and to tap into that vibe to keep you going.
Yeah, they always. I mean, I'm always amazed. I love the people that are posting every day, but I'm even more blown away, you know, when people are checking in, or to see people like Emily, Corey, Jeffers, Coach Fitz, all these different people, and all of a sudden they start tagging one another, and they're like connecting. And then also, like, tagging their other friends as it's getting started and, like, yo, check this out. Here's the movement breakdown. Like, let's get to it. You know, so knowing that they're promoting it to other people and that people all over the place are tuning in and making an effort to do this little, even, you know, some people may think it's not that much, but, you know, I think our purpose with the Daily Challenge was just something that started as us trying to motivate each other and kind of get back in that groove, you know, with all the flux of life and the transitions and thinking of moving and all this stuff. It was just kind of gave us that little platform of like, okay, every day I'm going to get back into this routine, even if it's just 5 minutes, but now we're getting back into that like no days off mentality. And to see other people embracing this and taking it on their own and making those changes and doing it and checking in is just, yeah, I mean, it definitely can snap you out of a bad day and make you realize, like, shit's pretty good.
There are days where I'm not grateful, or I'm dwelling on my work situation, or just dwelling on life, and, you know, I'll get tagged in a post by Jeffers or Emily or it was Corey yesterday, because she tagged us all and asked how her tribe is doing, and that just made me melt, man, because that's what, you know, we're striving for. That's what we want to create, and just to be grateful for the people that are doing it and the people that are pushing it. I love it, man. And, you know, now that we have this platform, maybe it's a good time for you to kind of tell the people what the Daily Challenge is and what our purpose is behind the Daily Challenge.
Well, I think the purpose behind the Daily Challenge, like I said, was just something for us to, I think, at least for me, you know, high school, college, it was, like I said, I was a little rammy and like there were no days off. And then as you get older, you know, you start like, oh, I need to listen to my body more, or I need to take a day off here or there. But 5 minutes is better than no minutes. And that counts as something. And then maybe there's another day where it's an hour or 2 hours, but some days all you need is 5 minutes. And you're going to feel better about yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, even just from 5 minutes. You know, so it's giving people that outlet to have that commitment for a month, to set those habits, to do those things, to make those changes. You know, not everyone has been a lifelong athlete. I think sometimes people look at that as, well, I can't relate to you. Kind of like where I come at things maybe from a negative mindset where, oh, well, this person turned their life around and then all of a sudden they're like a guru and people are buying into what they're saying. And it kind of goes back to like with the DC Jones thing where it's like, you guys are cheering for him because he's been sober for 6 months. I've been this way my whole life and you're booing me, you know? And so I'm kind of rambling here, but yeah, I think just the Daily Challenge is to give people who may have a hard time getting started to realize that all you need is 5 minutes to get started. And if you do 5 minutes for a week or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden that turns into 10 minutes, and you do that for a week or 2 or 3 weeks, and then you get the ball rolling. But I think for a lot of people that are trying to make these changes in their lives, they try to do too much at once. I mean, it's always the case. You see it we've seen it in ourselves, you know, whatever it may be, you know, it's balls to the wall, go big or go home. And that mindset can lead to a lot of disastrous things, or just burnout or giving up. And so I think the biggest thing is for people to realize is that just do 5 minutes. If you're coming off the couch, 5 minutes is going to be better than nothing. You know what I mean? And it's way more easy to digest. Okay, all I have to do is commit to 5 minutes today. And then over time, once you get the ball rolling, then you can go in these other avenues, and maybe I want to try CrossFit, or I want to run a 5K or a 50 mile or whatever it may be. But if you come off the couch and, you know, say you just watched, you know, the Barkley marathon documentary, or some sports, you know, something that got you fired up, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this every day, and now I'm going to, it's like, no, we just got to chill. Like, let's get the ball rolling. And that's all it is. You know, it's not the end-all, be-all, and, like, all you have to do is a daily challenge. But if you're getting started, that's a great place to start. And I know for me, and I know we've had these conversations, is that doing a lot of these different movements or things that we may have neglected, or just, you know, you're looking at bigger compound movements, or thinking that you have to go to the gym, and then all of a sudden you start doing some of these poses or some of these other movements, and you're like, oh, there's areas where that the big movements, the compound movements, the barbell, the CrossFit isn't hitting, and these things are helping for my running. And it's like, well, that's kind of where you started. You know, you were doing all these kind of physio type stuff before you got into the HIIT training and the MMA type of cardio conditioning, strength and conditioning, which led to CrossFit and all that stuff, you know. And it's like, we've got to kind of weave these things together, and it always comes back to being balanced, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. You know, when you have those 4 components checked off, it's going to be a good day.
Yeah, and I've noticed just from my experience, there's been days where it's like, I just want to get this in. I'm going to get this 5 minutes in, and then I'm done for the day. And then after I do that 5 minutes, it leads to somewhere else. Maybe I'm going for a walk. Maybe I'm going for a run. Right now, though, I'm using it as the warm-up for my run, and it's just a good way to, hey, I'm not going right out the door. I'm getting these muscles moving that maybe would be stagnant through my whole run, but I just did a minute glute bridge, and my butt's firing, and I'm firing when I'm running. And like you said before, those little muscles you see over time, you know, we start off at 30 seconds, go to a minute 30, 2 minutes, and then by the end of it, you're walking around the next day, and everything is fully engaged and fully activated, and you're like, oh, that's the light bulb moment for me. That's the, wow, there is something to this. There is something to these little simple movements of just doing it every day. So, you know, grateful for the daily challenge, grateful for you, grateful for everyone who joins us. The Dog Pound is crushing it daily, and, you know, grateful for the listeners of Airey Bros Radio.
Yeah, super grateful. It's always cool to check the analytics and see all these different foreign countries pop up, even if it's Russian bots. It doesn't make a difference to me. There's someone in Spain, someone in Israel, someone in Germany, someone in Finland, like someone in Australia, someone in New Zealand, places all over the country that we may not even know people that live there are popping up. So it's just cool, you know, and it's you know, it is that thing that sometimes gets you through the day, you know, and it really puts things in perspective. And for me, it's always looking back on my life up until this point, you know, the things where, you know, things kind of get out a little slippery or get out of control. You know, I look back on those moments, and it always comes back to me not being able to express gratitude for the things that I have. It's always the focus on what I don't have or where I'm not at right now, and instead of focusing on all the good things. And I mean, sometimes it's, I mean, you can go through the journals and stuff where some days it's just a list of like, well, I've got Vans, I've got no-show socks, I've got clean underwear, I've got, you know, shorts on, I've got a shirt on, I've got another one in my bag for when I soak through this one, or I've got a raincoat, I got a warm cup of coffee. Like the list of things that you can be grateful for every day is, when you really stop and put pen to paper, you could fill a page, and then that's, again, that's my reminder of, like, this was a tough time in my life. Why was it a tough time in my life? Because I wasn't able to really be in the moment and be grateful for what I had in that moment.
You hit it right on the head. Every situation that maybe backed out of, quit, or left the place angry, it was all because, well, I'm not there yet. I'm not here yet. I'm not going to achieve this there. Instead of just being grateful for the ride. And I think what you said, and the light bulb went off in my head, it's your mindset. It's how you go and think about it. And growing up, I just always assumed that I was just stuck in my mindset, that I had no control over that. And then, you meet an Uncle Steve, you read a John Joseph book, and you realize, no, your mindset is you. You are your mindset. And I think the more people can see that, the more we can kind of spread that message. That's where the world becomes better than it already is. And that's how you change lives. It's your mindset. It's your thoughts. That's the only thing you're in control of, is your mindset and your thoughts. Even if you're in a lull, or things aren't going right, or even if you're someone who suffers with depression, it's just the ability to, well, I'm breathing right now. I have a family. I have people who care for me. I might not feel it. My phone might not be blowing up right now, but there's people thinking about me, people putting good energy out there for me. And like you said, man, I got clothes on right now. I got shoes on my feet. And, sometimes when people ask me, you having a good day? And I'm always like, better than most. And, after the same people hear that a couple times, they ask you or they question. And, I'm better than myself in Africa. I'm better than having to run away from a lion right now. I'm better than living on the street right now. There's so much you have than other people don't. And I'm not saying, oh, you're not in those situations, so I'm better than them. No, your mindset's better than them. Your whole perspective can be better than them.
Yeah, and I get that sometimes too, with people saying, you always say better than most, and sometimes you're not in a good mood, or you seem like you're down. And my response is always, but whether I'm up or down, I'm still better than a heck of a lot of people. And I think they say that if you make $32,000 a year globally, you are the 1%. And the other thing too is, even if I had something to complain about, do you really want to hear it? Because in my experiences, when I feel like I'm just being vulnerable and just spitting out what is in my head, or it's all judgment. It's all judgment. And eventually that leads to someone like, well, I don't want, you know what I mean? But it's like, you asked. So now it's just like, no, I'm better than most, and that's my final answer. And why am I better than most? Yeah, because I'm not in Rwanda or wherever, gnarly shit's going down in Africa, or even as something as, I'm not in New Jersey right now. I'm in 2 hours, I can be at 14,000 feet if I really want to, even right now, like leaving this studio.
I mean, I'm down.
So, yeah, and that's my response is, well, I am better than most. You know what I mean? I got a job. I've got people that love me. I've got clients that think I'm the bomb and love what I do for them and help them with their goals. I've got people that I don't even know that are following along with what I put together in terms of a challenge, and they're making a change in their life. So today, at this particular moment, I may be on the hamster wheel because I ate a voodoo donut 2 days ago, but I'm better than most.
You had a voodoo donut and you didn't tell me about it?
No, I'm just saying, like...
All right, I was going to say, how dare you?
I'm just saying, now that I'm hyper aware of it and can track those sorts of things, I definitely see a correlation between the ups and the downs when I'm down or when I'm low, and I track it back 2-3 days. It's like, oh, you ate like an asshole. You had gluten. You know that what it's going to do to you, what the impact is. So now, as much as I love donuts and as much as I love pizza, I'm not putting myself through that anymore.
Sweet action and cauliflower pizza all day, bro.
Dude, that's all I need. Because I can turn that cauliflower pizza into, like last night there was a couple bites where I felt like I was eating Pete and Elvis.
Yeah, no, your little tricks you've been giving me with buying your own pepperoni, putting the oil on top, man. I feel like I'm at the California Grill eating a flatbread, like for real. It's next level stuff, but I'm also at a point where I'm trying to manage my cauliflower pizza intake.
I mean, I don't even look at the label because I don't care, but if I eat cauliflower pizza every night as a snack, life's good.
Yeah, but I got that 7-year later DNA, so I got to worry about that stuff.
I'm living in the now.
So am I, but I got different DNA than you, bro.
I can't be thinking about 7 years from now.
All right. Is there anything else you got for the people, Richie?
I mean, there's always stuff, but I think we've been on here for a good amount of time, and I think our time in the studio is coming to an end here. So I think we can wrap it up. Maybe we can save our Tinder tales for Thursday's recordings. But I've got some emotional rants based on some things, and then I've also got some conspiracy things that tie into a Tinder. What's the word I'm looking for here?
Tinder story, a Tinder situation.
Yeah, a Tinder situation that can tie into a conspiracy, and it may make you think a little bit about some of the technology that you're carrying around in your pocket and or having at your house.
Cool. Well, the people look forward to it. I look forward to it. For the 100-Mile Dick, I am Prince James. You just listen to Airey Bros Radio. Have a good one, people.
Much love. Namaste. Remember, when everybody does better, everybody does better.